I think the more casual it is, the better for me, so I can relax.
Okay. I'll try to be casual.
I mean, I feel relaxed, but I guess maybe subconscious.
So, Lina Puerta, thank you so much for being here at Artists Talk, a podcast by KODA. And I want to start with your upbringing. You grew up between New Jersey and Colombia, and I wonder how that has shaped the way you see nature, labor, representation, and belonging.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, Claudia. Thank you so much for the invitation. Yes, I was born in New Jersey, and I, when I was around 7 years old, my family moved back to Colombia, where my parents are from, and I lived there. I guess my formative years until I returned to New York, to the U.S. and specifically New York at the age of 17, so right before turning 18. And my idea was to study and go back to Colombia, but then I feel like I've been trying to do that ever since. um, and I have like a deep, what is the word? A deep connection to Colombia. And you know, at first you think it's just your family and, you know, maybe friends or memories, but with time I realized that it's very much connected to the land there and nature and all of the landscape. I feel it's the place where I feel most at home in terms of landscape. Um, and it's difficult because New York is more my home in terms of community. So I guess I am lucky that I can go back and forth. I am very privileged, but it's also a struggle. Yes.
And how did it shape? So, nature, I know that some of the pieces that we showed together are very inspired, like the installations that you do with plants are inspired by nature in Colombia. But in terms of representation and belonging, has that played any role?
Yeah, I think when I started, like, for instance, the botanical works, although I feel that nature has been in overall theme in my work, I feel that in the beginning I was not, with the botanical work specifically, it was more inspired by weeds when I was living in Harlem, and it was like how these plants just kind of broke through the concrete out of nowhere. And I didn't, the initial inspiration was not Colombia, but I feel that it is there in me. And now even when I go to Colombia and go on walks, I'm like, wow, these pieces are so much like my botanical pieces. So I feel it is something that subconsciously came through, and now I embrace that because it's like, wow, it's so interesting that you kind of carry your ancestral landscape with you. So, yes.
And how did your work evolve from exploring female body into spotlighting, for example, farm workers or the food systems?
Well, I think I was initially working with exploring the female body and seeing it through the lens of nature. And as I explored that, it brought me into thinking of like the land and agriculture, and how there are injustices that are all tied together, even if they're not like super obvious at first. So that's how I that's sort of how that was woven through in my work. And now I feel like I'm returning to the I'm not I wouldn't say female body, but definitely returning to the feminine, thinking of it more through like indigenous ways, and also other like ancient ways of relating to culture. To nature. Um, and it's really thinking a lot about myths, for example, and how the myths that were associated with women were at one point they were like women was revered in many cultures, and then long ago, and how those myths were the many of the myths, or most, if not most, of the myths that are associated with women have are negative. Like the woman is always demonized, or she eats her children, or she kills her husband, or she creates like chaos. And it's okay to have some gods like that, but what's interesting is that they were turned into negative, like they weren't initially that way. So I'm kind of fascinated by that also, and anyway, I'm going in different directions, but the feminine definitely is coming back, and in my work, and to me it's interesting because I feel like my themes kind of go in cycles. So there are a lot of, for instance, I'm working a lot with the diamond shape, and which is a shape that initially I was looking at symbols used by indigenous people in Colombia, but it's been used by Native Americans, and across cultures it has been used, the diamond shape. And it's a symbol of the feminine, of the land, and to me it's essentially a vulva. And so I am returning to making these works that have these like essentially vulvas, and I did vulvas back in 2003, and I kind of got tired of vulvas. And now it's interesting that I am going back to that, of course in a different way, but that is still there. Anyway, yeah.
That's so interesting. So it's been over 20 years and the theme is returning.
Yeah.
I wonder, because in your work you take on a lot of challenging topics, and I wonder what it means to you to honor that through beauty rather than through protest or documentation.
Yes, I think I am, even if, like for instance, I approach works in different ways. I often just work with materials and see where it takes me, and then I reflect on them. And other times I do, like with the farm worker pieces I did, it was, a conscious decision, especially because of the election of 2016. That was a bit more shocking at the time, and all of the anti-immigrant sentiments back then, and that we still have, obviously. But so I did research about that, and it brought me to thinking about agricultural plants, and when you think of nature, it just like, I think the spiritual aspect of it comes through, and to me, that is beauty. Like I associate beauty with spirituality. So I think that is a way through which I would like to bring in the view, or the way that I like to work, because that's what moves me. Trying to understand things through beauty. Themes that we might overlook, or or consciously or unconsciously avoid.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question actually about the concept. Like when you are working on new works, how much of it is concept and how much of it is following what the materials do and
Yeah.
how they behave?
So with for instance, the new series of works that I'm working on now, I think they stem from my interest in indigenous symbols used in weavings and in jewelry. And I decided to create works, this new body of work using actual jewelry made by indigenous people in Colombia. And I purchased the jewelry directly from mainly women that weave these beautiful symbols that they have been that have been part of their culture for hundreds of years, if not longer, and trying to amplify these symbols in a Western context that is also part of me and also part of my ancestry, and so it has slowly evolved, and the base of it, I've been using these potato sacks that are, like 2 by 3 feet. And I basically walked into a market in Colombia and I saw them, and they are made out of plastic, and they're basically garbage. And I saw them, and right away they caught my attention. So I asked at the market if I could buy some, and they were like, "Oh, have them. It's fine." So since then, I've been working with that material, and we use those here also. But I've been using mostly the ones from Colombia because many of the ones here have a lot of like signs on them and with logos. So so to answer the question, so it is in many ways intuitive. Like I was not planning to use this, but I came across them. And I also wasn't sure. I just wanted to like play with this material. Like, oh, I'm gonna try it, and that's how this new series evolved. And I do pay attention to the materials as I'm working, and for instance, I was making a slightly bigger piece using these sacks, and I took some jewelry necklaces and laid them down. And then I saw, as I laid them down, I was like, oh, this is a little bit like a snake. So maybe I'll make a snake. And then I thought, I don't know what this means. Like, is this gonna take me into making a series of like mythological animals, or I don't know. I was not. And then I started seeing the snake everywhere. Like it was just talking to me everywhere. And that took me deeper into researching about the snake and reading about the snake and different, especially mythology, and how it's been such an important like symbol associated with origin stories, especially, and how also in many cultures it has been an important and has been a revered animal symbolically, and in our own origin story of, well, our meaning in my Christian Catholic background, the snake is one of the few origin story. I think it's well, I don't want to say it's the only one, but it is completely negative. But in many, and it's across cultures, the snake was, it's very positive and revered. So, so that brought me, and that, and also learning also about the cosmos and the constellations and the serpent constellation and all of these different references, and it's brought me to creating a 42-foot long serpent that I am that will be part of my show this coming September. So anyway, that is how it's a total surprise. I wouldn't have thought I would do this, 2 years ago. But that's just how these themes kind of evolved. And I think it has to do, we are living in a special time right now, and it's a lot of hard realities, I feel, that we are living. And how, I guess someone might ask, how would this relate to what we're doing, what war we're living, or these times, and especially what you were asking about how to confront hard issues. And I feel that the serpent is like an invitation to it's an invitation for transformation in these dark times, because that is what the snake has been a symbol of transformation and renewal, and of hope, I think.
And it's not the first time you're using food packaging in your tapestries, for example.
Exactly.
And you've also used animals.
Yes.
Like a turtle or
exactly.
Insects.
Yes, and also snakes and
Mm-hmm.
other works that I've done. Yeah. So yeah.
And how does this feel different? So like maybe it's again like part of the cycle, but it's so the new body of work is mostly about snakes.
I wouldn't say that. I think it is. I think the snake is one of the main subjects or pieces in the exhibit, but I am also thinking a lot about like astrology, like as a ancient way of knowledge, because I am still very interested in indigenous ways of knowing or relating to the world, but it has brought me to confront my own, or maybe not confront, but to rethink or reflect, maybe it's a better word, on my own identity, because I am not, and I think we've had this conversation before. The fact that I am, of course, I have, and I say of course because most Colombians, through colonialism, we have indigenous roots, and European through colonialism, and African also. And for the indigenous part of my identity, growing in Colombia and also just in Latin or Colombian culture, the indigenous part has always been repressed or been something to be ashamed of, and so I was, I guess, trying to reclaim like that part of me that that has been repressed for so long and erased, mainly. But I also, when I go to Colombia and I come across, when I get in touch with any indigenous person, I am a white person to them. And also, I grew up in a Western culture. I did not grow up indigenous, so I cannot claim to be indigenous, even if it's part of my own roots. So that also brought me into thinking about how do I understand or embrace my own European heritage through a decolonial lens, or how do I come to appreciate it, but and live it without that freeing it from the. I don't know if you can't completely free it, but I guess heal it, and this is what brought me into looking at like ancient ways, and brought me into thinking of astrology and myths, and I don't think any culture has been perfect. We will never be. There won't be any perfect. So I don't want to idealize either the indigenous or the ancient European or culture, which had influences from many other cultures. But it has brought me into appreciating their sensitivity towards the cosmos, towards nature, towards women, and other times if you go back even, and also other ways of knowing besides books, and it actually connects so much to the indigenous. Like there are other ways of knowing that that are not so left brain. Like they're more intuitive or telepathic, or other parts of the, I guess, other parts that I think we haven't, we have kind of dormant in our, and that we have also not appreciated, or no, what is the word? I haven't valued, in Western culture. It has always been dismissed. Anything that is intuitive, or that is not factual, or that's not proven. So to me, all of that is interesting, and also I think it's also important to understand like other ways and how we can, I think, essentially heal to move forward towards a better society. Yeah.
And healing is urgent. It always often is. I wonder, when the subject matter is urgent, is there a medium that you keep returning to?
I mean, my medium is just mixed materials. I guess it's just how I put them together. Right now I've been doing a lot of sewing, which is very laborious, and it takes so long to do. So that part is also hard, being, especially living in a world, or in an art world, where you are kind of expected to produce and produce fast and produce new. So it is hard, but I I was actually like super lucky and had an intern for almost 3 months, and she was like amazing. And I didn't expect, it was like total stranger that came from Germany. Had I told you about this? Anyway, she came, and I was not sure what to expect, but it turned out great, and she was amazing help. Yeah. So that's another thing that I also has made me reflect on anything, on these types of art forms that are, like quilting or sewing, that they take so long to make, that there is a reason why they were made communally. Like it's not just one person making it. And of course, we know that artists have, it's very common for artists to have assistants, but then you need to have, a financial support for that. So it's not so easy, or it's not accessible for everybody. But just thinking of, like these other, thinking of quilt making, or these art forms that we've had and that haven't been considered art, but that have always been made by women, by mainly women coming together and working on one piece. Yeah.
So now I want to think a bit back to when we started working together, which was in the pandemic. You had a residency with KODA in 2020, and then in 2021 we organized an exhibition together at CUNY's Hunter East Harlem Gallery. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, how does the work change in a context of an exhibition? Because, for example, we showed some of your older pieces together with some of your newer pieces, and now you're preparing for another exhibition soon in September, you mentioned. So yes, any thoughts on that, like, change, or the, I don't know if it's the meaning, but how does the work change in the context of an exhibition?
Well, I think the show that that KODA put together, it was a survey show, and that was so special to me, and I think it was very well received. And I have, actually last week I saw a curator that she said that was my favorite show of yours, like that. Yeah, so it was special, and it's great that so many people got to see it. And I guess it's a way of I think it's a way of understanding an artist's voice, by showing works from so many different periods. And it was it was one, I guess, 1.5 galleries. So it wasn't huge, but I feel like it was concise, and it was a good representation of the work I've done. And for me, it was also kind of a surprise, because I wasn't sure, like, how I would like it, especially because I think I have some of my early work. Even though I appreciate it and see it as part of my trajectory, but I have like mixed feelings about some of them. So it was yeah, I feel that it was definitely like vulnerable for me, but I think that's good. I think every show is vulnerable. It's, you have levels of vulnerability for sure. But I think that is just, I feel like art making is that you are, I'm super excited about this serpent, but I am also like not sure if this. I'm not sure what this is. Like, I mean, I know like what I'm excited about, but as a piece, I've been working on it for 3 months. It's still not finished, so I've kind of lost if it's good or not. You know, I'm too close to it to know. So I think it is scary, but I have no options. I just have to push forward and we'll see. You know, I think you also have to keep. I think as an artist, one thing too that I have to remind myself, or that I'm telling myself constantly, especially in these moments of uncertainty, is that if it's okay if it's not, it is okay if it's not the best piece in the world, you know, because you can't put that pressure on yourself. And second, I feel like no matter how amazing an artist is, not every piece has to be a masterpiece, you know. Um, and I think I was listening I think recently I saw this person on Instagram, I think, that I don't remember her name, but I think she was saying like how we need to not only value excellence, but we also need to value like things like and perhaps well, she said disability, which that should not be the opposite of excellence, but I guess obstacles or things that I would say even failure, because it's part of the process. You know, I think as artists we need to, I think as people we need to allow ourselves to fail and just understand that it's and not feel so ashamed of it. Like you always have to be excellent. I think it is important to, and of course it's easy to say, but easier to say than to. But I think we need to normalize some level of failing, because that's the only way of I don't know, of learning too. You know, and moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on the way, on the way to something, and on
Yeah.
the way to learning.
Yeah.
I have another question about curators specifically, and about the role they play. You feel they play in shaping your work, or framing your work. And were there any moments that framing did not align with your intentions?
Yes, I think it happens often. I try, I, you know, I think it used to bother me more. Of course, I mean, it depends. Like sometimes it can be very difficult, and other times, like I guess if it's in a group show, I just let it go. I just let it go. But yes, I think it happens often. But I also, I mean, I also don't want to, I guess it's also different points of view, you know, that I think it doesn't have to be exactly the way I see it, you know. So I think with time you learn to be like flexible with that, although unless it's like completely and you know, saying something that is completely opposite of what you're saying, then I would, you know, address it. But if not, I don't, you know, and especially if it's a group show, like it all depends. But I think in a solo show, I mean, that is more important to, and I think it's easier because with the full body of work, it's I feel like there is I think it's easier to like see what the voice is or what it's saying. But and I think it's also important that that curators and have a conversation with the artist. And I also have found that there are people that kind of get the work more than others. So that happens. Anyway, I'm not sure if I am
Yeah, no,
responding.
it's great. I feel like with the framing, maybe in a solo show, there's more of a collaboration.
Yes, exactly.
And then it's interesting what you say about group shows, that it's just easier to miss the mark and to just make a connection that maybe is not there, but it's at the end of the day a different point of view that somebody
Exactly.
has. My last question is about responsibility, and in particular thinking about the ancestral knowledge that is such an important thread in your practice. How do you carry that responsibility in a contemporary art context?
Can you ask a little more?
Paraphrase the question. Sure. So yeah, you've talked already a lot about the importance of the indigenous ways of knowing, and how the aspects of intuition and just like not being so rigid but maybe more trusting is plays an important role in kind of learning from the ancestral knowledge. But it comes, if you choose to select that as part of your work, it comes with a responsibility. And I'm wondering kind of how any thoughts about that, how you feel about that, or relate to that responsibility that you carry with referring particularly to ancestral knowledge.
Well, I mean, I feel like art for me, or art making, has always been a way of understanding myself better, or understanding my own, making sense of my life and the world around me. So it is personal, and at the same, and in terms of like ancestral knowledge, is again, it's like trying to it's making sense of something that is part of me that was erased and repressed through colonialism, and also the European side, understanding it free of the current mentality of extraction and of over consumerism. So that it all kind of relates to healing. So I think in terms of responsibility, I think the part that at one point I had I was uncertain about was how like not being like exact or factual in terms of knowledge, or in terms of like what indigenous really people, like what indigenous, like I can, like what I said, excuse me, what I said with the shape, with the diamond shape being a vulva. I mean, I'm sure there's some indigenous people that'll be like, no, it's not that, So I am also I feel that as someone of this mixed origins, both both I am just kind of rediscovering, or maybe that's the wrong word, or I am relearning. Um, I think it's it's important to give myself or give ourselves permission to create our own mythologies or our own stories. And I've heard this from the African American community too, that a lot has been lost and you can't pinpoint exactly in terms of like what ancestors did or believed or what mythologies they had, but we can make our own if it's gonna help us heal, you know? And I feel like that's okay. So I say up front, this is not exactly, this is my interpretation. And also it's been liberating to think that that your ancestors live in you, like they're part of you, so you have a way to remember. So you have to also trust that if you are, I guess, being as true to yourself as possible and honest, that you can kind of be a channel and bring forward these new stories or mythologies that will help us make more sense of ourselves and reclaim who we really are. Because I feel like as a Latino, I think that is part of why, not just, and I think this applies to across the world, part of not part of the chaos and imbalance that we have in the world has a lot to do with our disconnection with the cosmos, with nature, with our ancestors, with our land, with the land that we come from, with our own, with an origin story that has been twisted and turned to manipulate, you know. So with having just one God, mainly, that is in the image of a white male, you know, like all of these things that have done a lot of damage. And so I think we can, for me, it's like finding ways to heal and to liberate ourselves and know ourselves better. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important what you said about art having that power and the feature really of being personal but also relatable. And it can be a tool for all that, for learning and healing. So that's really all I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm very happy that we sat down and did that. But maybe in terms of things you have coming up, how are things going for you?
Great. Well, thank you. I am super focused on this solo show that I have, and it opens September 9th. I hope you can make it. And I'm working on a MTA commission that will open next summer.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That sounds awesome.
Thank you. I'm excited. And it relates to the themes that I'm working on now, so I'm excited about that. And I'm finishing a new botanical version of Installation Amateurs for the Arts. That will be up for a year. Not in their gallery, but in this other space that they recently, it's in their repair shop. galleries slash workshop, or yeah. So I love them, so I'm happy to do this. And it was a new iteration that also has that I'm incorporating, of course, the serpent. So I'm having fun with that, and I'm gonna be in couple group shows this summer that still don't have full information, but yeah.
Busy, good busy.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Lina. So nice to sit with you and chat.
Thank you. The same.